Do you remember the last time you walked out of a movie theater in complete silence? Not the silence of someone who was bored, the other kind, the one where you're walking down the hallway, the soundtrack still playing inside your head, and you simply can't say a word because what you just watched hasn't fully processed yet? That's exactly the kind of experience Demon Slayer Infinity Castle promises to deliver. And today, I want to tell you why this isn't empty hype, isn't studio marketing, isn't that thing where everyone's talking about it so it must be good. No. There are concrete, real reasons why this film is a different kind of event from anything anime has ever put inside a movie theater, and I'm going to walk you through every single one of them. But first, let me set the scene, because if you've only followed Demon Slayer through the anime series, there's a good chance you don't fully grasp what the Infinity Castle arc actually represents within the story as a whole. Koyoharu Gotoge, the manga's author, spent entire seasons building one very specific thing. Wait, every character you've come to know carries a history of pain behind them. Every hashira holds a burden you uncover little by little, and the world of demons was presented in an almost cruel way, where violence has real consequences, where characters actually die, where sacrifice isn't just narrative decoration. All of that was construction. All of that was preparation for the Infinity Castle. This arc is where Gotoge put every single chip on the table, nothing held back, nothing saved for later. The most anticipated confrontations in the entire series happened there, back to back, with a level of intensity that left manga readers literally breathless. People who read the chapters on their weekly release described the experience as feeling like punch after punch, with no time to recover in between. Now, picture adapting all of that for the big screen, with ufotable behind it. Think about this. Ufotable isn't just any studio. They have a track record that honestly has no equal when it comes to animated action. Anyone who watched Rengoku's fight against Akaza in Mugen Train knows exactly what I'm talking about. That sequence was so visually staggering that a lot of people went back to the theater just to watch it again. Ufotable's animation doesn't feel like animation. It feels like art in motion, with a level of detail you only catch when you pause on a specific frame and find yourself staring at it longer than you planned. Now, they have the most ambitious arc in the series to adapt, and they decided to do it as a film trilogy. That decision matters a lot more than it might seem. When a manga arc gets adapted into weekly episodes, there's a rhythm pressure that often damages the source material. Jarring scene cuts, battles interrupted mid-flow, that one episode that feels more like filler than actual content. In film format, all of that disappears. Each movie has room to breathe, to develop, to build tension exactly the way it was intended. The entire arc finally gets the structure it always deserved. But let's talk about what actually matters, what you're going to see when you walk into that theater. The Infinity Castle itself is already a setting that feels impossible, a castle that exists inside a dimension controlled by Nakime, where corridors bend, floors invert, and the architecture itself is a weapon. Visually, it's the kind of setting that was born to be animated, and Ufotable is going to push every detail of it with that signature lighting of theirs, those breathing technique effects that seem to have their own texture, that fluidity of movement that makes the fights feel like a brutal and precise choreography all at once. And the fights that happen inside that castle, man, I'm not going to spoil anything for those who haven't read the manga, but I will tell you this. There are confrontations in this arc that fans have been waiting for since the moment certain characters were first introduced. Confrontations that the manga itself built up over chapters, sometimes over entire seasons, like a promise that is finally being kept. And when they arrive with everything. Tanjiro is going to be tested in a way you haven't seen yet, not just physically, but emotionally. His entire journey up to this point is going to make sense in a completely new way when you see where he ends up inside the Infinity Castle. Zenitsu has one scene, just one, and anyone who read the manga knows exactly which one. Some people consider it the single most satisfying moment in the entire series, and I'm inclined to agree. Inosuke, who always came across as the most instinctive and least calculated of the trio, is going to show you a dimension you probably didn't see coming. And the hashira, The pillars, who were introduced as the most powerful warriors in the Demon Slayer Corps, are finally going to get the moments the series promised them. You'll understand why each one of them is who they are. You'll see the real cost of being a hashira. Now, let me talk about something that goes beyond the content itself. There's a difference between watching Demon Slayer at home and watching Demon Slayer in a theater. That's not an opinion, it's almost a physical fact. Yuki Kajiura and Go Shina's soundtrack was made to be heard at full volume, with bass you feel in your chest. Those compositions have a layer of depth that a laptop speaker or even a decent home TV simply cannot reproduce. In a theater with surround sound, the music becomes part of the scene in a completely different way. It doesn't accompany the action, it creates the emotion. And there's something else, the collective silence of a full audience. There are scenes in this arc that were built to provoke a reaction, not the loud kind where people are shouting and clapping, though that's going to happen too. I'm talking about the other kind, the one where something specific happens on screen and the entire room holds its breath at the exact same moment, where you glance to the side and the person next to you has their mouth open just like yours. That kind of experience doesn't exist on streaming. It only exists when people around you are living through the same thing at the same time. I've heard accounts from Mugen Train screenings in several countries where at one specific moment near the end, the theater went into absolute silence for several seconds before anyone reacted. Several seconds in a packed theater, everyone processing the same thing simultaneously. The Infinity Castle has multiple moments with that exact potential, and the first film is just the beginning. Now, I want to be straight with you on one thing. If you're expecting a film that will introduce you to Demon Slayer from scratch, explain everything from the beginning, work as a first entry point into the series, this isn't it. The Infinity Castle assumes you know the characters, know the story, know the weight behind every name. It's not going to stop and remind you who anyone is. It goes straight to the point, and a big part of the emotional impact depends on you having followed everything that came before. So if you've never watched Demon Slayer, the recommendation is clear. Watch the series first. It's not homework, it's an investment. You'll walk into that theater with the right context, and the experience will be something else. Now, if you already follow the series, if you already have a favorite character, if you've already had that moment in some episode where you were left speechless thinking the animation couldn't possibly get better, let me tell you something with complete clarity. It's going to get better. Ufotable has the richest material the series has ever produced, with a film budget, with trilogy space to develop it, and with years of expectation from a massive fan base, creating exactly the kind of pressure that makes studios deliver their absolute best. Is it worth watching in theaters? Yes. Without a doubt, without a single reservation, with the same conviction of someone who saw Mugen Train on a big screen and understands what Ufotable is truly capable of when given the right stage. The moment to be present when this story happens for the very first time is right now, and a theater memory doesn't have a rerun. But one thing keeps sitting in the back of my mind after everything this arc promises to deliver. If the hashira were created to be the last line of defense against the most powerful demons in existence, why does it feel like the real enemy was never Muzan at all?